and Vinesh come from very different backgrounds. Vinesh comes from Lupin and Nova IVF, so a lot of the medical background, which Arjun also is referring to, and Juhi is from Marico. So I think to kickstart, I think the focus for this panel discussion was trends for 2020 and where do you all see innovation in your markets. I think FMCG, obviously the market is quite flat, and I think you were mentioning, Vinesh, that pharma continues to ride the wave high. So it'll be great to understand from you all how are you all looking at 2020 and what trends you all are seeing.
So I think it's a very interesting space to be. Just to give a background, I'm part of MD CEO's office and I'm leading the digital transformation there. Prior to this, I have worked with Myntra and Jio. And here at Marico, we have about 35 brands, and each of them work in a very different manner. Wherein we have few very agile new startups being launched. So in a way, I'm part of a startup journey there. And then we have names like Parachute, Saffola, etc., which you all have heard. So one of the biggest trend that we see is that in the mass category, maybe it's going flat, but we see premium and luxury going very, very big, even in FMCG. The way the Mama Earths and Beardo's, Beardo is again a Marico brand. Yeah, so they have, created clutter-breaking content, and the way they have created a loyal base who keeps going back to them is actually the way, ahead. A lot of them are actually driving on ingredient stories. So you must have heard about WOW creating onion oils and argan and all these. So that's one big trend for us as well. Second is consumer response and goes back to the brand which has, in this cluttered space again, has created a differentiated space. So mass is probably not the way. There are cohorts of consumer who go after really what they believe stands for their personality. So about Beardo, if you see, it represents a very different kind of edgy man, and which is essentially why we see, even in a FMCG space, they have 40% brand.com direct-to-consumer sale, right? Similarly, you'll see going ahead, we'll have a lot of such success story. We have also launched one gourmet range, which is Pitify. Again, that talks about fitness consumer. That's a lifestyle. And that ways it creates a niche for that consumer.
How do you all, before we go to Vinesh, how do you all look at digital first brands, or do you all also look at them as omni-channel? I think both M-Fine and Kaushik from Sugar were discussing on omni-channel. So how do you all view that?
So actually, we have three models very particularly. One is the core brands. Second is a mix of a digital and offline brand. And third is purely digital first, which is that the channel of communication will also be digital, while we will have presence in GT and MT, general trade and modern trade. But the core which grows is also e-commerce. So that way there are three for us.
Thanks, Juhi. Vinesh, do you want to share some trends on 2020?
Good afternoon, and thank you very much, Social Beat, for having us here. And I think we are on the fake end of the day, and everybody is wanting to take a break now. I'll give a very short perspective on what I understand. I am slightly older generation of the current marketeer, which comes from non-digital background marketing and transforming towards digital. And also in healthcare, it's not where we can, like consumer or FMCG, where we can shout about the brand. It has to be very subtle. Healthcare in India itself is taking a lot of transformation from about decade before also. It was all about doctor name pool. And the so-called organized healthcare of the big brands of like Apollo, Manipal, Fortis also were more doctor-driven business and not really what you say an organized business. So I'll give a very stupid example. You don't walk in a subway asking who is the chef, though it's to eat sandwich, because we have gone beyond that, thinking that it's a brand which pulls the customer. It's not the same in healthcare still, but it is changing towards that. So a really organized healthcare, and I come from a 26-year-old back, I am 26-year experience in healthcare, and I have 2 or 3 of past my stint led a startup of healthcare, and my last was Nova IVF. And I have seen a lot of transformation happening now in healthcare where brand pulls customer more than the doctor name. That's where real organized healthcare will come. And I'm not trying to demean anything here, but I'm saying it has to be still doctor-centric or healthcare delivery-centric, but not doctor-dependent, the organized healthcare. When the brand is pulling customer, it all was about B2B few years before in healthcare. You meet general practitioners, you meet secondary care doctors, them to refer to tertiary care. Of late, in last 5 years, I think there is a lot of transformation happening where it is more going to D2C, or we say B2C, business to customer. In the business to customer space, if I give my experience in my example, we started a company called Nova IVF, chain of IVF center, one of the biggest brand in India in IVF and one of the most reputed in the world. We started our B2C after the first 3 years only with B2B. And when we started B2C, being the business owner, I personally went to IIM Bangalore to learn what is digital about. And if I see now, 5, 7, 8 years later, from a 5-10% of marketing spend, which was on B2C and on digital, now most of the brands in healthcare and organized space are talking about digital being mainstream. So from where I see, there's a lot of transformation happening in healthcare space, in organized healthcare space, from doctor pool to brand pool, from B2B pool to B2C pool. In B2C, as we are listening since morning, more from spending in print and TVC, it's more going towards digital. Now I am on a crossroad where we have joined a large pharma company. It's a pharma global major organization wanting to develop adjacencies, and I am the founding member of their healthcare setup. And I see that when I'm building the blueprint of and the B plan and for this business for next 10 years, I see 50% of the marketing dollars going only into digital. Especially if I talk slightly more on from where I come, I have only an IVF background, so we are setting up chain of IVF center treating infertility patient. If you take that specific space, there are millions of couples in India today, and the numbers are very scary, who are married but infertile. From 1 in 9, as per government census in 2011, it's now going to be 1 in 6. 1 in 6 married couple in India suffer from infertility primarily because of lifestyle changes like late marriages. These couples still believe that it's a personal shortcoming, most of them. It's basically a WHO specified medical disease, and you need a medical treatment. So funnel is very large, but this is the space where people don't want to ask friend, relative, or anyone that I am infertile, I am suffering from infertility, I want to go and meet a doctor. They all want to check with Google and Facebook and all online. So from healthcare, from organized healthcare, from a brand pool, if you come to specifically where I work, the most critical transformation is happening. The patient acquisition will largely happen only in digital.
So what percentage of the budget, like at Nova IVF, for example, was digital versus
It was
offline?
10% in 2015 and 50% in 2019.
Right, and so you continue to do some print and television?
I believe in future it will be the B2C budget in healthcare will be largely only digital.
Right.
It's going very, very fast towards that.
Thanks, Vinesh. And Juhi, what kind of media spends do you all do online versus offline? Could
So
you
I
share
think
some light?
1/5 would be digital. And when I say digital, it's on platform on e-commerce plus digital media. Otherwise, purely digital marketing would be, last year it was about 12%, and this year we are aiming at 18% jump.
That's quite low compared to like 50% which Vinesh mentioned. Is that because attribution's a problem in FMCG and brands, or because e-commerce?
So A, yes. B, also because as I said that our brands like Parachute and Saffola are the biggest chunk, and then they drive the maximum marketing money, where the consumer is still, sitting at a low handset device, and the cost to reach out, etc., is way too higher, and all of that. However, it is changing. Yeah.
So how do you all measure, like for e-commerce, for like Beardo and for like Parachute, how do you measure the metrics? And then maybe on IVF you can share what metrics do you all track on digital?
So I think that's a very interesting question, because when I come from Myntra and Jio, right, the data was available to you on your handset, right? And it's a very interesting part. When I joined Marico for one of our digital first brands, for me to get data, it took me 1 month, because there are 10 stakeholders, and most of the data is owned by the agency, right? And what is being reported, there's no way to check. So which is why there is a very big initiative that we are driving to set up the in-house analytics capability. There are these typical dashboards which everybody looks at, but really like making a on-the-go change is something which is not happening, right? So we spend the money and then we look at the report, which is not right. So we are looking at consolidating all the data sources. We are also getting into strategic partnership with the platforms like Amazon and Flipkart to get a direct API connections to what we spend there, because finally your attribution is happening there. GT is empty, GT and MT is still far away. And then look at much more running multi-touch attribution model and then spending money on the go.
Thanks, Juhi. And Mesh, what about?
I think it's a very complex question, but I'll try to make it very short and sweet. For looking at metrics of how much we spend and how we got, first thing is I believe we need a very strong IT infrastructure in the organization, which largely healthcares are not that great. So hospital management system, all the CRMs, all the clouds, everything get connected. Then you can see the whole funnel from where you first acquire a patient, how you convert a call center, how the patient comes to your center, how you convince the patient for treatment, and how the treatment happens. So cost per lead, cost per valid lead, cost per footfall, cost per treatment, there are all metrics. I think everybody knows this. The beauty of digital is that you can track the source very well and you can see the ROI very well. What I think and what I believe is changing is more spend on brand building rather than in digital space, rather than only for lead generation.
So performance versus branding, you're saying shifting more to
Correct.
branding.
So when you spend some of your dollar, which was less and now it is increasing on brand building in digital space, not only for lead generation, and then you see more traffic coming on your website and you have more organic traffic coming on website. So there are very different metrics. I try to keep it very simple. Is how much you spend, how much you, so revenue versus your marketing spend, not trying to go too deep into it and make it too complex.
I think you actually brought up a very interesting topic. I think we can have a separate panel discussion itself on it, to be honest. But in the interest of time, if there are any quick questions, we can take that now before we break for lunch. Yes.
So what do you see the trend in changing channels from, say, dominating from, say, Facebook and Google towards LinkedIn or Quora or any other communities where especially for medical, where the communities is much more driving force for queries and getting the replies to.
So we keep seeing the changing trend, and if you ask me my experience, and I'm not trying to give any specific answer to this, we have in healthcare, in the domain where I have seen, the cost per acquisition of a patient from lead to patient is the cost of first lead is less at Facebook and it's high at Google. But when you disseminate towards footfall, it actually evens out because of pull and push. So I mean, personally to me, my strategy is that from the lead generation amount, so say for example, we have 100 rupees of budget for digital, 60, 70 rupees is still spent on lead generation, which will over a period of time go more for branding. Out of them, we generally divide it 50-50 between Google and Facebook. We also understand and we spend a certain amount of money on LinkedIn, on Quora, on the platform just to build a B2B pipeline for us.
Juhi?
Yeah, so actually, it's again a mixed bag for us. For the larger brands, since getting the reach numbers is still delivered by the larger platforms, which is FB, etc. We go by them. But for the smaller brands, wherein we have very limited marketing money, and we need to drive conversion and performance marketing to a e-commerce portal, there we are looking at a lot of smaller platforms. So within, say, for example, beauty. You'd have a PopExo, etc. as a choice, and you'd have smaller platforms. So we are going more towards smaller platforms in that case. Similarly, Instagram to smaller platforms, so we are going towards smaller platform even there, because the cost of acquisition for a smaller brand becomes way better. We are also looking at driving a lot of traffic to brand.com to collect the data and use it in a much more wise manner.
I think well summarized. I think a lot depends on the sector as well. So like a healthcare, probably Google would work better in terms of customer acquisition, whereas you could use Facebook and other channels for branding. Whereas for e-commerce or like cosmetics, or for like women-centric brand, probably Facebook might even work better. So I think one last question.
Juhi, we've been hearing through the day that, you know, 1 in every 4 women has moved online and everyone's on the smartphone. So your jump from 12 to 18% sounds fairly counterintuitive to what we've sort of been listening through the day. What's sort of the thought process here?
That is right. So actually, the thing is that there are two paths to it, right? One is the digitally influenced audience while we are trying to engage them, etc. For a brand like Parachute and Saffola, which are fairly known brand, we don't really have to establish a brand, and hence you do not need to spend. But whatever I'm speaking about, so say for example, a Kaya Youth. It's a 100% marketing budget, which is on digital marketing, right? For a Fitify, again, 100% on digital marketing. But these brands have fairly small marketing budgets, and hence the overall proportion goes up to 12 to 18%. But FMCG benchmark, as per our marketing knowledge, is 10 to 12. So that ways we are faring better. But again, as I said, mass versus premium and all of that, right?